teachers of Reddit, what are some positive trends you have noticed in today's youth? As a health buff, students tend to be drinking a lot more water than when I was at school. Probably around 80% of kids tend to have water bottles. I've noticed now. During my time in school they wouldn't let us have water bottles or any kind of drink in class. Same here. You had 3 minutes between classes to use the restroom, get a drink, switch books, whatever. And quite a few teachers who would tell us we couldn't go get a drink because we wouldn't always be able to just drop what we were doing to get a drink later in life. Also no AC in most classrooms. Being kinder to animals. Jerks I grew up with used to hit strays with stones and sticks. True, I see this trend even with bugs. I have a lot of kids try to keep or save ants or other bugs they find in the classroom rather than immediately decimate it. Although I will say I've also had kids eat the ants they find because they heard somewhere that ants taste kinda good. They reported back to me that the ants were spicy and that it felt as though the ant was crawling around inside their throat and then stomach. Gotta love middle school. I seriously regret reading that last part. Just means they didn't bite down fast enough. I teach 2nd grade. They are much kinder and they are much better readers than kids even 10 years ago. I'm surprised to have to scroll so far down to find this. Illiteracy was a problem well into this century, since lots of poor students would also mean they're not reading. Now, kids are immersed into reading at about the same time they can talk because of that evil cell phone technology. My girlfriend's 7-year-old daughter was already reading before kindergarten. I don't think we were taught to put letters together until the end of kindergarten or 1st grade, I can't remember. Loads of poor kids are still not proficient readers, unfortunately. When kids actually commit to something they are extremely resourceful. I feel like it's being raised with the internet at their fingertips. My daughter is 4 and her preschool is teaching her Spanish. At home, when she wants to know the Spanish word for something, she asks me to Google it on my phone. It's so crazy. Yep. I'm getting my degree and I couldn't imagine studying without internet and still get a decent grade. I have noticed that my freshmen, for the most part, tend to be very open, I guess is the right word. They seem to readily share their thoughts, ideas, problems, etc. with each other. They put each other's fingerprints in their phones, readily share them, and don't really have anything to hide. They are also super honest and upfront with me. I don't know if this is truly going to turn out to be a positive thing in the long run, but their expectations of privacy are very different than mine. I think it is an offshoot of social media culture. I've said that about my kids and their friends. These generations are unblackmailable. This is a wonderful thing, because so many horrors come from shame and secrecy. There's been so much evil done in the past through manipulating people using shame. From the blackmailing of gays, to self-hatred and its projection. But I can't see it happening anymore. These kids won't have it. They are open about their problems, and they are incredibly supportive of each other during difficulties. They're growing into adults that just are not motivated by those fears or those secrets. It's amazing. I love the young. Collaborative learning through taking class notes on things like shared Google Docs. Students add in comments where they don't understand parts of a lecture, and other students will explain. I went to college much older than the norm and this blew my mind. We also had shared Dropboxes, flashcards, and even live Google Doc notes. This is probably going to get lost, but I teach emotionally disturbed kids who can't attend mainstream high school because of their behavior. These are kids that treat the majority of the people they interact with like shit. They use slurs and swear and can just be all round horrible to each other. We have one kid who's full-on autistic, but the parents refuse to have him diagnosed, so he's with us, not in an autism unit. They don't say a word to him. They listen to him rant about chickens and rabbits and even ask him questions about it. It's so bizarre to see kids frothing at the mouth and calling me a fucking cunt and then gently redirecting the autistic kid away. They're so much more accepting of disabilities than my generation was. It's great. I graduated high school in 2010. A buddy of mine is autistic but relatively docile. He was never aggressive in any way, just highly excitable and would talk nonsense for the most part. Anyway, our class embraces this kid with open arms. You would have thought he owned the school, man. High fives, pats on the back, people greeting him as he walked through the hallways. I ate lunch with him every day my junior year along with a group of the more popular kids who loved him despite being the cool kids of the group. We had our own little call and response type thing whenever he saw me. He never got tired of it. I remember one time I happened to be walking to my locker during class and I saw a couple VPs kind of cornering this kid and talking gently to him. He was having a bit of an episode and was extremely distressed about something and he wouldn't cooperate with the administration. I asked if I could talk to him and they said sure. So I greeted him how I always would, hey so and so, what's up? What are we doing tonight? And he grinned and came over and slapped me on the back. The same thing we do every night, Ethan's mantra, try to take over the world. We took a little stroll and by the time we came back he was all good. I graduated and didn't see him for a few years. One time I was back home for a few nights and ran into him at a pizza place. I was curious if he would remember me. He came up and slapped me on the back and said, hey, Ethan's mantra, what are we doing tonight? Man, I swear I almost cried. They're more pragmatic about the choices they make, taking measures to reduce the amount of student debt they are going to accrue. They are also much more accepting of people of other cultures. Much less discrimination it seems. There is the common depiction of the entitled college student nowadays, but at least where I have been teaching in the Midwest, most students are holding down side jobs and generally working pretty hard. Edit. To stand on my soapbox for a second, I'm a major advocate for higher ed and strive to help students land fruitful careers, but I'm also glad to see a trend toward encouraging technical school and trades. Nobody wants to see a young person go into debt by attending a school they're not sure they belong in, a field they're not sure they enjoy. There is serious pressure for young people to map out their entire professional lives at 18 years old. I think, in my experiences, the sense of entitlement can sometimes, not always, that's for sure, be misinterpreted as they are educated and know what they want and are willing to stand up for it. They know what they, and others, are capable of, and want to make it happen. They're more aware of the general goings-on in the world and have a strong sense of justice. Along with that, as others have mentioned in this thread, they are more accepting of differences. The bully-victim trope is less of a thing now, where I am, at least, and kids usually love and let live. The flip side of this is that a lot of kids are getting faulty information and a lot of them carry fairly shocking, uninformed opinions because of what they've heard or read on the internet. Yeah, this second paragraph is sadly very true. I will also say that it's true of many adults as well though lol. Art teacher here. My 6-year-old students are really good with encouraging statements, absolutely unprompted by us. We were working with Clay and the shyest girl, who had never spoken once, said, "Wow Riley, you did a great job on your bunny. It looks beautiful." Or when a girl cried because hers broke, a student said, "Don't worry Coco, you can repair it, it'll be okay." Just very kind things like that, you wouldn't believe a 6-year-old would have the selflessness to say. I'd say they're better at forming their own opinions on issues and morals, which I would largely attribute to their access to the internet and thus getting to see and hear a wider variety of viewpoints. I remember when it used to be that my dad likes Bush so I like Bush kind of thing, but now I hear kids have actually individual viewpoints and intelligent conversations about world issues. Plus, I feel like they're more open and honest. It's not uncommon for kids to tell me how they're feeling or what's going on with them in their personal lives or what they think of what's going on with the class or me, usually all of this without any prompting. It helps me adjust to what they need and feel and want, and also just helps us build that bond. When I was their age, 7th grade, I was a steel trap when it came to talking to teachers about what was going on with me, and pretty much all my peers were the same. I totally relate. I once accidentally called my teacher mom, and I still shudder when I recall that. Not a teacher, but here are some positive friends. Kids are a lot more polite and understanding. They can easily protect people that need protection, if someone is getting bullied, etc. They are less edgy. This is hard to believe because of those edgy subreddits, but they are. They can raise their voice easier. This generation is actually not that bad. It seems to me that students today are increasingly more aware, curious, and resourceful. Everything from climate change to science, from the arts to socio-political considerations. They question things more directly, and are adept at exploring and finding answers as they adroitly navigate the internet. Imagine growing up and anything that interested you just look it up. Is making for very smart kids. Nerd, geek culture is more accepted. That would mean less bullying, which is great. Perhaps the bullying has just shifted to the kids trying to keep up with outlandish Instagram standards? I would hope that the acceptance of nerd culture would have taught acceptance for being yourself, but it seems like the culture has only shifted. I agree with your Instagram comment. After picking up on how my daughter was pouring tons of her energy into keeping up on Insta, I limited her right away. Months later, after limiting her to 1 hour per day, she's let go of the majority of the nonsense.